Right. Good afternoon. Today I am joined by Jason Bauch, who is the CEO and co-founder of Luramiles. Jason is a fascinating leader, multifaceted, rich, diverse background, accomplished entrepreneur and business enterprise owner. Jason, thank you so much for being here. Before we dive into today's topic, would you mind maybe just telling us a little bit about your personal experience in the logistics space and a little bit about your company and what you do?
Sure. Thank you very much for having me on. I love being able to talk about our company, man. I'm so proud of what we're creating here. Laura Miles is really just the brainchild of one question: what does that truck do? And what we did was we kind of found a way to evolve that, and then also then market it to shippers directly rather than through a brokerage. So what we've done is we've created a marketplace that allows shippers to select actually really good trucks, already vetted, everything's ready to go for a selected price, and we took all the negotiation and all the fluff out of the dealing. This allows small mom and pop companies to be brought to the table with companies that are Fortune 500 companies and really just companies of all different sizes, but it allows them to be seen in a world where they're never seen. And so by bringing them to the forefront is our hope that we can get these guys to scale and really thrive. It's tough. It's really tough out there owning a trucking company. I don't know how these guys do it. Quite honestly, I mean, we watch the attrition and it's sad. And nobody goes into business to go out of business, and these guys are just going out as fast as they can start new ones. So, that madness has to stop. And by doing that, I think we can stabilize the marketplace as well, as far as how we as consumers actually receive the products and kind of stabilize some of the pricing that we've seen.
Well, thanks for that introduction. So today, actually, that's basically the topic of our question today, right? Is how do we retain customers in this really challenging marketplace? And when you think about 2025 for the logistics and supply chain market space, it's already been a crazy year between tariffs and trade wars, and even things that logistics companies never had to worry about before with cybersecurity,
Mhm.
workforce staffing. Thinking about all those challenges out there in the market space right now, would love your perspective and to hear from your vantage point. What do you think some of the most significant client retention challenges are, and how is Lure Miles addressing those challenges?
Well, I think by presenting a solid product and a reputable product, you will naturally retain your customers. We've got great relationships. We have very long-term relationships with our customers. Historically, I've found that a lot of customers have a trajectory of about 5 to 7 years. In that time, what will happen is a new workforce will come in, something will change on the customer side, and they make some type of a dramatic change over time, or just immediate. But something changes in that period of time. And we have a pool of guys that have kind of played out like that. And that's where I kind of came up with that number. But then we look at the other side of our customer base, which has been around for 15 years. Now, I realize that predates Laura Miles, but those are people that have been loyal to me and the brands that I've built, and they've followed us into Laura Miles, and they're enjoying the fruits of my labor, because we really do present an excellent product, and it can't always be about price. You know, the happiest customers are the ones that understand that this can't be a bidding war, that this has to be, there's a cost of operation. I tell these guys, you start off with a shape, right? You got a square, and that's what I sold you. I sold you a square. And every time I reduce my price, I've cut a corner. And then, we keep cutting corners and we no longer have anything that we can count on. It's a circle, and that doesn't work. I'm not presenting what I've sold to you. So now I'm the bad guy because I've allowed you to chip away at what we do. So by holding firm to what we do and really making sure that we're true to our customer base and the people that we choose to serve is how we retain them. We're not going after everybody. Not everybody's appropriate. If you're going to beat me up and you're going to have me chasing dollars, I got other things to do. And we look at the numbers, and that's how we determine who is our ideal candidate. We want to make sure that we're working with people that are going to be happy and that are satisfied with receiving a hell of a product and for a fair amount of money. This isn't Walmart. This isn't discount freight.
Sure. Yeah.
And I think keeping it objectively, we want to make sure that we're presenting the best possible product. And by doing that, that's how we really do hold on to our guys. We want to be innovative. The things that we're offering through the platform, the marketplace alone, are just crazy, man. The things that we can talk about, I could talk for days about what we've got going on, and then some. Here in about 90 minutes, I've got a dev team meeting, and we've got some new toys that we're unleashing. And I just hired somebody new from the Microsoft Fallout product that just happened early this week. A friend of mine works there, and he's like, "Hey, I'm available. What can you give me?" I'm like, "Let's do this." So he's coming in. We're going to start implementing different forms of AI and some different things that he wants to shed, you know, bring into our light and our ecosphere, so we can start really impacting our customers and bringing them brand new stuff. And I think that's a large part of it, is breaking away from being normal, doing things that are not expected. Anybody can have a freight brokerage, guys. I mean, that's just the reality of it. Is there's nothing special behind a freight brokerage, is other than the relationships. What are you offering, and who can you use to offer those tools? That's really the secret sauce in any business, especially in transportation.
Jason, I'm not sure if you have my script and you're reading off of it, because it's like the next two questions in a row here. Exactly what I was about to ask you. So you had a post on LinkedIn that I really loved, and you talked about how some companies just fizzle out and die, but winners solve problems proactively.
Mhm.
And you just touched on it, right? About being innovative and
Yeah.
unconventional. So curious what proactive solutions you have implemented recently to stay relevant in this marketplace and address some of those new challenges.
Well, AI is a hot button. I mean, everybody wants to say they have AI. In most cases, what that really is more machine learning than anything. And the difference here, for those that need the crash course, machine learning is basically a guidance of rules. It allows the computer to kind of make some decisions based on this and this. Think of it like going down the lane of a bowling alley. You're eventually going to end up in the gutter or on the bouncers, and it's going to bounce you down the lane. You're going to get there eventually. AI takes that idea and just runs with it. It's a wide open field. It can go in any direction, and you're hoping that the decision comes out the right way. And the thing about AI is, if you ask it to solve global warming, it'll tell you to move the earth away from the sun. That's kind of the reality of it. We kind of have to refine what we're getting. So, I think that truly offering some level of AI is important in companies that are emerging, and really knowing how to harness it. And then that's some of the stuff that we're really looking at, is how do we harness it? How do we make it work for our customers? How do we present the best possible options for our carriers as well? Hey, we've got things in there that are telling carriers where to go and why to go there. We don't want to flood markets with people. That's one of the biggest problems we have in this industry, is everybody flocks to a spot. And then this other spot just becomes completely empty. And then they move back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And the market just keeps shifting. It's all over the place. But if we can control some of that migration, then we've got a different story. Now we've got an equalization of the field, and people are all surviving and making money too. That's really the goal here, is to make everybody profitable and everybody scale.
Yeah, and like I said, you had the next two questions on my list. So the first was about the innovation, and the second was AI, because it seems like that's become the new magic word, right? Is that, oh, I'll have AI, and AI will solve all of my problems. So in the context of rethinking customer retention, how is Luramiles leveraging that AI? Or if you're not, you can technology more broadly, but identifying those new potential customers and
Sure.
genuinely engaging with them in a way that helps them to scale their business.
I'm not going to get into the specifics of what we do here, just out of fairness to my product and what we're offering, but our customers are currently enjoying a higher level of communication and availability. And that allows us to scale into what we're currently doing for our customers, and then also for our carriers. We want to make sure that everybody's being able to get the best possible opportunities for growth. It starts with contacting the right people. So leveraging into that, how are we communicating with them once we've met them? And then once we've met them, how do we move forward in that relationship? And that's on both sides of the fence. So whether you're a carrier or a shipper, we're looking at that, because you don't talk to both parties the same way. You're going to have a different conversation with a carrier than you're going to have with a shipper. They just have different needs. So you're not going to say the same thing. It's like being a parent. Do you have kids?
Yes, I do.
If you had a boy and a girl, you're not going to say the same things to each other. Even if they're twins, it's like the advice changes. Something has to change. You have different audiences, and that's not specific to any particular topic. It's just somebody receives something in one way, and you have to cater your messaging to that. And we look at that, and how do we best position ourselves in those conversations also. So by using this higher level of intuitive thinking, we position our marketing that way. We position our communication that way. We've done a lot of other things with that. And then it comes into internal system optimization.
Yeah, it makes sense, right? Knowing the customers, tailoring the message, being very tactical about that, but also then making sure that you're listening, right? And I think that's another part of it that gets overlooked too often these days with AI, is right, like, well, here's the answer, but that
Well,
answer doesn't work for me, right? I can't move the earth away from the sun to solve that
exactly.
problem.
And I should mention, our customer service is real. They're real people. I've had people say, hey, you should use a bot for that, or you could do this, you could do that. I'm like, yeah, but you get those phone calls and they're awful. They're absolutely awful, and I don't want to have those types of issues. We need to have still a human touch in
Absolutely.
these things. If you have a problem with Amazon, you're not going to be able to get a human being on the phone. You can't even get a real one on a chat. I mean, they're all bots. But I think that logistics really still needs a human touch. Just like we're not going to let 80,000 pounds roll down the road without a technician behind the wheel somehow. I just don't see it coming. Airplanes, they've been able to fly on their own since the 70s, but yet nobody will get on one without a pilot. Same thing, man.
Well, looking at your own journey in business, I'm curious what you think, AI tools or systems you wish you had had 5 years ago.
I'm about to date myself here. I got started in this industry as a driver back in 1996. And when I moved into the office, we were working off of an AS400, which most of your audience won't even know what that is. And like Internet Truck Stop was brand new. There were competing programs, but they all came out at the same time. That was extremely expensive, and it was only on the truck stop boards. You could like at the truck stop, there was people fighting over payphones to get loads. It was a very analog way of doing things, and I was doing air freight through these systems. So it's kind of like in our time we've seen from the Atari to PlayStation. We've come so far to really put into perspective where we started versus where we are today, and the innovations in the last 10 years are just compounded so fast. Think about what we were just doing only like in 2015 versus what we're doing today. The products that were available and what was considered the best possible product is just being bought up and looped into other companies now. They're just being absorbed and people are taking their payouts as far as like a tech product. So I marvel at HubSpot and things like that, the actual CRMs that we have. I spent most of my career working off of Outlook. I had a taskbar and I would go click through the taskbar and that's how I would make my calls. And then I would update those files and then I would just put them in rotation. So I would make it set to pop up and I had to do these calls. It was the cheapest, most efficient way I had to do this type of event. And, now it's practically free for what you're getting. I mean, it's ridiculous. And so that innovation's just been absurd. And I think that when we really look back at what we have today versus what we had then, you can get away without a TMS. If you're a brand new company, you can absolutely do it. I did it. Ran a multi-million-dollar company off of Excel spreadsheets and a whole lot of filing. It can be done. It is not efficient, but it can be done. But that comes down to the relationships. It's always going to come down to that, guys. We want to make sure that we're always going to have a solid carrier and customer base because you have to have somebody to sell to and you have to have somebody to provide the service to that customer. And so if you're selling to both of those groups, that's really the basic bare bones. And all you have from there is just improvements on that, better ways to do it. But it's always going to come down into that in its purest AI or not. It don't matter.
Right. Oh, that makes sense. And then my last question here before we wrap. So, fast forward 2 years, use your own crystal ball. What role would you hope that AI will play in the way that you're attracting clients, telling your brand story, and scaling that impact?
We have developed some very cool stuff with regards to the LTL world. Yeah, we have not launched it yet. In fact, it's only in our business plan. It appears for investors. Outside of that, we don't really talk about it. It's not on the website, but we've got some really cool stuff that we've developed for LTL because of the way that we offer a service that allows us to offer a much different level of LTL than most people are used to. And that's what I'm truly excited about. We look at where we're going versus where we are today. By putting AI in there is going to make it so much more efficient. I mean, we can put stuff in there that'll kind of make it cool, but that's where that takes over and goes, nope, do that, this, move that here. All right, go forth and be merry. And just using it for optimization, really. That's really the magic behind it, I think.
Well, thank you very much. I want to be respectful. I know we're at time here. Thank you so much for joining us. And I know our customers and clients are just going to get a ton of value out of this. So thank you
It's a
very much
blast, man.
for being here.
Anytime. Thank you very much for